Hello my internet friends, today we'll be hardwiring a dash camera, or 3, into my 2015 Mitsubishi Mirage. Although these instructions are more general, not really specific to the Mirage. So we're going to start off by talking about what features I recommend you look for in a dash cam, and then we'll jump right into my installation. So to start off, one of the features commonly advertised with dash cameras is the screen. In my opinion, this is the most gimmicky, most useless feature you could possibly have. If we just look at this car here, this guy has installed a screen in his field of view that is literally showing him a video feed of directly outside of the windshield, what is right in front of him. It is the most gimmicky, most useless thing ever. And sure, on a lot of these models you are able to turn off the screen, or it will turn off after a few seconds. But it's still stupid because you're installing this dash camera in your field of view and it will bother you, has no real purpose. All the high quality dash cameras and OEM installations do not have a screen. They all interact through a phone app or something like that. The next feature on this list is having a high resolution. In my opinion, this is fairly useless. I personally am not concerned with trying to be able to read license plates, because I'm not concerned of a hit and run. I don't care if I'm able to read license plates. I just rely on the other person not fleeing the scene. And generally speaking, even with the greatest possible camera on the market, there's a good chance you won't be able to see a license plate because the paint is faded on their plate. They have a plate cover, or if it's at night and the light's reflecting off of it, the exposure in your camera is not magical. This ain't no friggin' DSLR shit. The next feature on this list, having a wide field of view, is very important to me. If you go on a website like bestbuy.com and look at a dash camera, normally the first item under the specification list is the field of view width in degrees. I will explain to you why I think this is important using this made-up scenario. Here's a photo of some random intersection off Apple Maps in Toronto. Let's say hypothetically that the street lights weren't working at this intersection and you are supposed to treat it as an always stop. Now let's say that this white car that this arrow is pointing to was our car, and these poorly drawn blue lines represent our dash cam's field of view. So everything within these blue lines would be visible on our dash cam video feed. So now let's stop and think for a second. Let's say our car has stopped behind the white line and we're looking both ways with our head. Using this dash camera video footage, are we able to conclude that our car came to a stop before this dark gray car that I've pointed an arrow to? The answer is no, because when our car is stopped behind the white line, we are not able to see this dark gray car, so we cannot argue that we must have came to a stop before them. Therefore, we're unable to argue that we had right of way, that we were the ones that were supposed to be driving through this intersection before them. Therefore, this dashcam video footage is basically useless. If the scenario I described to you sounds a little bit unlikely, here you can see this silver 2015 Mitsubishi Mirage was declared a total loss by the insurance company, and both drivers claimed they had the right of way to go through the intersection, as the streetlights were not working at the time. The next feature on this list is cloud backup. I think it's something that's nice to have, but it generally costs a monthly fee. I'm not too sure if it's worth it, but it may give you peace of mind to know that you're not relying on some shitty micro SD card to capture your footage, and that you will have access to it even if your car is lost in fire or towed away. Another thing that comes with like a cloud backup service is, generally speaking, you will be notified in the event of a collision. So if your loved one crashes, you will be sent that footage immediately in the event of a collision. You're not relying on them to tell you that they've been in a collision or what have you, which is kind of nice. The next feature on this list is parking mode, which essentially all dash cameras come with nowadays. But unless you're spending hundreds if not thousands of dollars on extra batteries to put in your car to run the dash cam, most of these only entail turning on with a shock sensor, so they only start recording after the collision has occurred. I will demonstrate to you why I think that this is a dumb idea using a diagram. Let's start off by imagining that this is my Mirage. This image is of the newer model, but I can dream. Now let's throw some yellow lines around it so we can feel like we're getting the true parking lot experience. Now let's imagine that this blue line represents our camera's field of view. Everything within this blue triangle is what our camera is capable of seeing. Now we will simulate another vehicle colliding into our vehicle. That's not in our field of view, the camera wouldn't catch this one. The camera wouldn't catch this one either. The camera wouldn't catch this one either. You basically have to get hit directly in the front for this to work out. So now, for argument's sake, let's say you bought a second dash cam to record in the rear, or you just backed into all your parking spots for some reason. It's worth mentioning that most rear dash cameras also have a narrower field of view than the front camera, as illustrated in my poorly drawn diagram. Now we will once again simulate a collision. So in this one, remember your camera only turns on after the impact has occurred. You won't be able to see the impact, but you may possibly see his license plate if he has a nice, clean front license plate and conditions are perfect. But even with a license plate, it's not that useful because you didn't actually record the impact. So this may work out if you also have a security camera footage from a mall, the police want to cooperate with you. May work out. So in this one, your camera started recording after he hit you. So it didn't record him hitting you. And the problem is, since his vehicle is perpendicular to yours, your camera won't be able to see either of his license plates. So your camera is basically useless. The last two things on this list, the rear camera and the interior camera, these are kind of new ideas in the dash cam space. The interior camera only became popular since a lot of people are doing Uber now, but it may also be useful in other events, like when you get pulled over by the police or what have you. But at the same time, when the police pull you over, normally they ask you to turn your car off, which turns off the dash camera. But that's something we'll talk about a little bit later in this video. Generally speaking, a rear camera will almost never help you prove innocence or guilt in a collision. As you drive the car, normally you're driving forwards. It's very unlikely that you drive in reverse and it's not your fault, and the camera footage would be useful. But sometimes it's nice to have, you want to see how your collision occurred or what have you. I've personally got some front and rear dash cam footage I'll probably be releasing to show you the value of having a rear camera, or lack thereof. So now that we're done talking about features, let's talk about installation method. My personal favorite would be this OBD2 adapter you see here. It's very nice because it's a plug-and-play solution. You don't have to disassemble the car at all, and it allows you to plug in two devices, either two dash cams, or maybe you could even use it to charge your phone. But it also has, if you look on the device, it has a slider. It says 10 minutes, 24 hours, or infinity. It allows you to set a delay for how long until your dash cam turns off after your car is turned off. This is a big feature on the Toyota OEM dash cam. Toyota advertises it as the dash cam will turn off 2 minutes and 45 seconds after your vehicle is turned off. And Toyota says this may allow you to record people who may attack you in front of your home if you park in a way that faces your home, or something along those lines. Or it may also allow you to continue recording in the event that you get pulled over and the police tell you to turn your car off or what have you. The other popular option would be by using a hardwiring kit as shown here, where you use a fuse tap to power the camera. There's two popular types of hardwire kits on the market. There's a 2-wire style and there's a 3-wire style. Here you can see the 2-wire style. It comes with this fuse puller. You can just use pliers to pull out your fuses. It really doesn't matter. There's the black ground and there's the red positive. It's supposed to go into a fuse tap. Along the positive wire, there's also this thing here, which is an inline fuse. Not sure why this is needed. It's kind of redundant, but I guess it's nice to have. This also features, as you can see here, a low voltage cutoff. So if you were to wire to continuous power, it would automatically shut off before your battery died. Here we can see a 3-wire style of hardwiring kit. One wire is supposed to go to constant power, one to accessory, and one for ground. The point of the constant power wire is to allow the camera to know when to enter parking mode and when to be continuously recording. You can see that this also has a low voltage cutout so that when your battery starts to die, it will shut off to leave enough power in there for your car to start. I'd also like to briefly mention the cable length is fixed in place in both of these. You can't adjust the length of the cable, so you might have a big mess when you install these with extra cable. None of these offer enough currents for my use case. They're both limited to 2.5 amps. So I've come up with the idea of using a conventional 12 volts outlet USB adapter plus to power my 2 dash cams, as this has a much higher current rating. Here's what the fuse tab we will be using to wire this up looks like. So you can see I will be using a 5 amp fuse, so that is all the power I need. I'd also like to quickly show you how I currently have my dash camera set up. So I use the adapter that comes with the camera. So I've just got it plugged into the 12 volt socket. The cable runs behind the glove box. You can see the mess of cable there. Then it runs up to the A pillar. It's kind of hard to see in this video. And then runs up the A pillar. And then along the roof. And then right to my mirror dash cam. The problem with this is it messes with your passenger's footwell area, and sometimes I want to use the 12 volt socket. But otherwise, it's been working very well. The green light on the adapter also bothers me. Alright friends, we're going to jump right into this install. We're going to start by removing this panel. So it's got one Phillips head screw right here for us to remove. There's one more finer head Phillips head screw for us to remove. It's kind of hard to see, but I'll give you a closer view in just a second. As you can see, that's the screw we just took out, and that's the OBD2 connector that I was speaking about earlier, and this other screw. To remove this panel, start by pulling where the silver screw we removed is, and it's very easy to get it out the rest of the way. Now we can take a look at the back. You'll see 2 electrical connectors at the top for the switches, and at the bottom is the OBD2 connector that we spoke about earlier. The top 2 electrical connectors have tabs for you to squeeze and pull, as shown here. This bottom OBD2 connector you can just push to either side as shown here and it'll pop out. For those curious, here's what the panel we just removed looks like, with the OBD2 connector hole at the bottom. And we can also look down and we can notice this dangling plastic piece. This is just for noise dampening. It was held on with that one small Phillips black screw we removed. Before we go any further, I'd like to mention that if we pay attention to these yellow and white cables I'm pointing to here, those go to this rusty looking thing. This is actually the SRS, the airbag, secondary restraint system airbag. If you disconnect this and turn the car on, you will have a problem. Also notice that the airbag is held on with bolts. It is not a joke. This thing does probably work, hopefully. I'd like to teach you guys how to remove the A pillar on this car. So you start off by grabbing somewhere near the top. I chose here, and you just pull. Note that this won't fully remove the A pillar. It'll only dangle it by a few inches on this plastic cord I'm going to show you. The reason that this A pillar trim piece remains dangling like this is because it has this black piece of plastic that's a couple inches long that's holding it in place. It's like this so that when the side curtain airbag deploys, this will pop out to give that airbag room to deploy, and this won't go flying and hit you in the face. It's very important to notice the electrical cables are very nicely tucked away so that they won't interfere with the airbag. And we can also confirm that there's this big ass hole here, plenty of room for me to drop my dash cam cables through and to the fuse box. So you can see from the driver's seat, this plastic trim piece will never be able to hit me when the airbag deploys, hopefully, maybe. So to put it back, you just start by putting the bottom in first, then you pull a rubber weather seal over top of it, as you see me do here, and then you just push the trim piece back onto the car. There's one plastic clip near the top that holds it in place. Before we dive into the fuse box, I'd like to mention these aftermarket wires you see me holding here with the inline fuse. These are for an aftermarket power door lock system the owner before me installed. I'd also like to mention that if we trace this black cable right here, you can see that they chose to ground it on the structure that holds the airbag in place right here. The reason they put it here is probably because it was easy access for them to use the drill to put in the screw. If we look here, we can see these two fuses surrounded by this yellow piece of plastic. These two fuses go to constant power devices in the car. One goes to the radio and one goes to the eTax computer that receives wireless signals to unlock the doors from your key fob. And the reason these are encased in this yellow piece of plastic is because they come disconnected from the factory, and during the PDI or pre-delivery inspection you're forced to pay for, they are installed by the dealership. This is to prevent your car battery from dying between the time the car is made in Thailand and the time it is sold to you by the dealer. So now we're going to set up our multimeter. We're going to turn it on to volts DC right there. We're going to take a red probe, we're going to take our black clamp and we're going to clamp it to any exposed piece of metal. I'm going to use the airbag frame. Now we can look at this fuse box diagram. I'm going to be using fuse number 2, the cigarette lighter. If we look at all of these fuses, we can see they each have these two metal tabs, one on either side of the number. This is to allow you to use your multimeter to do a continuity test across the two. If there is no continuity, then you know the fuse is blown. But you can also use this to check when they have power, as you will see me do here with my multimeter probe. So you can see I'm just going to use the probe here. It doesn't matter which side this fuse is supposed to be good. You can see we're getting 0 volts because the car is off right now. Now I'm going to put the keys in the ignition, turn the car on to accessory, and we're going to check this again. Now you can see that we get 12.5 volts. So now we've confirmed that this is only on when accessory power is on. I'm going to teach you a little trick on how to choose where to put your dash cam. So we're going to be using this USB cable and we're going to try and power our dash cam from either this USB plug with the radio or from this battery bank I own. And then we are going to launch the live view in the app so you can see what it's going to look like. Now that I've got the dash cam powered from my battery bank, we're going to launch the live view video feed from the app. My biggest concern with placing this camera is making sure that I don't get the arm for the rear view mirror in the video feed. Now we're going to use a microfiber towel and some Windex to clean the windshield. Remember not to use something like Rain-X, which leaves behind an anti-fog coating that will prevent our adhesive from sticking. Now we're going to plug in the included power cable, tuck it up along the headliner and down the A-pillar. You'll see me throw the big bundle of extra cable into the roof area, as I don't want to clutter up the fuse box area of the car. Here's what it looks like running down the A-pillar. I just used some twist ties I had that came with the cable to ensure that the cables stay bundled together with the OEM cabling and will never get in the way of that white airbag strap. Now we can wipe away some of my grubby paw prints and pretend like we're professionals here. Now we can see the two dangling USB cables, and we can start thinking about where we want to mount our adapter. I was thinking about mounting it right behind this airbag support bracket thing with a couple of zip ties, and I've kind of visualized how long the cables need to be. I'm going to go solder it up. It's not supposed to be a soldering tutorial. There are plenty of those online. Essentially, I'm just going to wire this little bit of extension wire onto the fuse tab wire, and I'm going to wire that to our 12 volt socket. Right here you can see I was too impatient. I tried to slide the heat shrink tubing over that metal tab too soon. I ended up shrinking before it even went over the tab, so I had to cut it a little bit and then try again. The ground cable you see me using here I've actually stolen from one of the dash camera hardwiring kits I showed you earlier in the video. What's very funny to think about is the heat shrink tubing kit I bought doesn't contain the same size of red and black heat shrink tubing. It only contained a size of black heat shrink tubing that was too small or too large, but it did contain the correct size of red heat shrink tubing. It's kind of stupid. You'd think they'd all be the same friggin' size. Now, using a pair of needle nose pliers, because the fuse puller crap they give you with the dash cam kit is just a joke, it doesn't actually work. We're going to pull the fuse out. Here's what it looks like installed into our fuse tab. Remember, the fuse we just took out of the fuse box goes in the spot closer to the car, and our fuse for the dash cam goes in the spot further from the car. Now we are going to try and zip tie our 12 volt socket into place. Here's the zip tie I've put in. My goal is to get this zip tie in between this lip and this threaded ring so I can clamp down on the zip tie. Here's what it looks like installed. You can see our two USB cables going into our 12 volts to USB adapter. You can see our 12 volt socket and our zip ties that hold it in place. And what's very important to me is from the bottom you can see that neither of the two cables are in an awkward position or being bent at a very aggressive angle. Now you can watch me struggle to put this ground cable in. I'm going to use the screw that the last guy already provided me with. It's kind of hard to do with one hand. You could just friggin' use a self-tapping screw and put it in anywhere you want. As long as it's bare exposed metal, it really shouldn't matter much. Now we're going to bust out the multimeter one last time, and we're going to determine which side of the now removed cigarette lighter fuse is the side that receives the power. So the car is in the accessory position. You can see the right side receives 0 volts. And now we'll do the left side at 12.5 volts. So we know that the left side of that fuse is the one that was receiving power from the battery. I'd like to take a moment to discuss why fuse taps are directional. So if we look at this fuse tap, let's say hypothetically that the battery positive is connected to the left side of this fuse tap. So now within the fuse tap, this side of it is energized. So this left side of either fuse is energized. So now power is able to travel through our yellow fuse and down our red wire, which is good. Hypothetically, let's say instead battery positive was connected to the right side of our fuse tap as shown here. Only the right side of the lower fuse will receive power. This is by design, as otherwise the add a fuse wire here would be bypassing all the fuse and be directly connected to the battery, defeating the safety protection offered by the fuse. So now power will travel across the original fuse that came with the vehicle to protect the cigarette lighter, and it will travel down the left side to the cigarette lighter, but it will also travel up and energize the left side of the fuse slot above. And now power will travel across our yellow fuse to our fuse tap device, which in this case is our dash camera. The problem with this type of installation is now we have two fuses in series. So if our dash camera draws like 3 amps, 5 amps of power, it's going through both fuses. So if you have a 5 amp draw on the dash cam, hypothetically, and then you have a 15 amp draw from your cigarette lighter, there will be the sum of the two, 20 amps, traveling through that blue fuse, so it will blow. So the problem with this is it creates a situation where there's unexpected behavior. The driver of the vehicle is expecting that cigarette lighter will have a 15 amp fuse and be able to deliver 15 amps. But if configured in this manner, it will only be able to deliver 15 amps minus whatever power is being used by the fuse tap. An argument can be made that this is the better configuration method. You could say this because you can argue that the fuse box may not be designed to deliver like 20 amps or however much power through that one fuse slot. And you could also argue that theoretically, hypothetically, maybe the fusible link, which is the fuse located near the battery, between the battery and the fuse box, may blow because the car wasn't designed with you using this fuse tap in mind. I don't know, man. You can do math. I'm sure this voids your warranty some way, somehow. Don't ask me. So now that we've decided that we're going to install our fuse tap with the cable coming off the right side, we can just push it into that slot. Now we can turn the car on and test our handiwork. Huzzah, the dash camera turned on. It's like Christmas, but in the middle of summer. Now the car will be reassembled in this really fast time lapse. I'd like to quickly teach you guys how this cool plastic clip thing works. So essentially there's this plastic clip thing and the screw we removed goes in the middle of this. So the screw is threaded, so you need a screwdriver to remove it, but to install it, you can just push the screw straight in with your finger. It makes assembly of the car much faster in the factory, and this clip will hold itself in place without the screw. We're now done our installation. All that's left to do is to put these two screws back in and to install a micro SD card into the camera. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave any questions, comments, feedback, concerns, criticisms, judgments down below. This video is also my 100 subscriber special. I'd like to show my gratitude and great appreciation towards the first 100 people that decided to subscribe to this YouTube channel. It means a lot to me. Thank you.